Hello everybody. ARM just released new server platform roadmap, and there is absolutely insane performance. You can see here, they say for the V1 platform, they say they are going to bring 50% single thread performance uplift, and they say it's a ISO clock and ISO process. So it means IPC, 50% IPC uplift, which actually means, because N1 based on the Cortex A76 is actually somewhere really close to the Zen2 architecture. So it's really 15% faster than Zen2 at least. And yeah, let's take a look on the numbers, because this is really interesting. And because ANANTech has a lot of measured data, and actually we can compare in the SPEC benchmark, SPEC 2006, we can compare a lot of architectures. We do have Apple cores, Apple 11, 12, and 13, because ANANTech has in some other reviews, we do have a measured data here. So we can see here, this is Apple A13 Lightning, this is the Cortex A12, this is the first 6 LAU Monsoon A11. We also have a Cortex A77 here, and some other Cortexes. We also have a measured Zen2 and Intel 9900K. This is the Coffee Lake refresh. So we do have a lot of data to be compared. And also we can see here, we have the Tiger Lake, and we have also the Ice Lake here. And also interesting here is the Renoir and Graviton 2, which is the Neoverse N1. This is the first generation of the server core. And they say it's plus 50% to this Graviton 2. So let's take a look on the numbers. If we do take a look here, N1, if you take this core, and we know that the Graviton 2 is running on 2.5 fixed gigahertz, we can actually calculate the IPC here. The score per gigahertz is actually the IPC, or performance per clock. And we can see, because when we do for the Zen2, you can see here, this is the normalized results for the relative to the Intel 9900K. And you can see this is of course 100%, and Command Lake is a little bit faster. Ice Lake is bringing pretty nice and solid 13%. This is the fastest x86 core in terms of IPC. And Tiger Lake actually has like a 6% decrease in terms of IPC. So the rumor about the Rocket Lake with a lower IPC than the Ice Lake was actually true, because yeah, the Rocket Lake is really based on the Tiger Lake, and there will be probably a little bit lower IPC. And we can see here 6%, and you can see here Zen2 has a really similar IPC to the Coffee Lake refresh and the Comet Lake. And don't forget, this is actually the integer, and there is also this is the integer score here, and there is also floating point. So this table is in integer, and you can see here the N1 Neoverse N1 core from the Graviton, actually from the Amazon Graviton 2, has a 10% higher IPC than Zen2, guys. This is a really, I don't say it's like serious situation, but it's not bad actually, because it's based, actually N1 is based on the A76, the Cortex A76, And this mobile core has a much lower IPC actually. It's really boosted. And if you calculate the difference between those two scores, you will see that this server core has a higher IPC by 28%. This is a lot actually. And so the insane performance of the V1 actually, they say it's like 50% above N1, not A76, but N1, which means if you calculate the score of the V1 actually, and you add 50% to this N1 score, you will get 18 points per gigahertz here. And actually, if you calculate in compared to Intel, it's like 66% actually higher. And this is really a serious situation, because how Intel is planning to fight these new ARM server chips with the Intel Ice Lake X, because Intel Ice Lake has only like a 13% higher IPC than Comet Lake, guys. This is just the 13% only, but ARM, they are saying after 1 year they are going to jump 50%. This is not jumping from some lower IPC. They are already jumping from IPC which is higher than the Intel and AMD, and they are adding another 50%. This is absolutely insane, guys. This is really serious situation. This situation can kill x86 actually, and this is probably the explanation why NVIDIA is buying the ARM. And if you think this IPC is not realistic, I have to show you these numbers. This is actually A11 Monsoon. This is the Apple core, which is from 2017 actually, has already 41% higher IPC than the Intel and the AMD. And 2018, the Vortex core, which is now in the development kit for the ARM books, for the ARM silicon for the Apple, it's like already 65% higher IPC. And the last year, 2019, the Apple A13 Lightning core has like 83% higher IPC than the Intel and AMD Zen2. This is really serious situation, because this is really close to the double IPC. So, and this is actually measured data actually from the AnandTech. So, and Apple already released some performance number for Apple A14, which is promising 40% higher performance than this Apple A12 Vortex, which means actually at this suggested frequency that the IPC is actually more than double than Intel AMD, guys. So this is really not a fairy tale. This is the really cruel reality. And this is actually the result of that we are fine with our desktop PCs, that if somebody has a Skylake which is 5 years old, he's still good for the gaming. It's not really a bad CPU even today, but this is the mirror of the stagnation of x86. And you can see here, Apple was developing the cores really hard, and ARM, they are doing, they try to catch Apple. They are not fighting with the x86 actually. They try to catch Apple, because Apple is the leader in terms of IPC. And Nuvia, Phoenix, yeah, my suggestion, and they already released some Geekbench numbers, which is there is some range, but my suggestion is like a 2.4 higher IPC than Intel and AMD today. And this is next year, end of next year. Nuvia Phoenix is planned for the end of next year. So it's like a competitor to Zen 4. And I am AMD fan, guys. I am owner of the Zen 2, the Ryzen 3700X. And I did a video about the Zen 3 prediction. And I'm actually suggested that the Zen 3 should bring more than 50% IPC. so more than 20 probably. And but anyway, how AMD wants to actually fight this V1 actually core with a 66% higher IPC, when the Zen 3 will have like a 120% higher IPC. Guys, this is still like when we do calculate the difference here, and the difference will be like okay, this is 1.65 divided by 20% IPC of the Zen 3. This is like this is almost 40% slower in terms of IPC, the Zen 3s, than the V1. This is really dangerous situation. I really do worry about AMD right now because yeah, next year they will be fighting Zen 3, maybe Zen 4 with this new ARM V1, and the V1 will have a almost 40% higher IPC than Zen 3, and maybe 20% higher IPC than Zen 4. And if Zen 4 will be available next year, which I do think, end of the next year, but still it's nothing in compared to the ARM V1 and Nuvia Phoenix or Apple A14, or next year there's Apple A15. This is really serious situation, and I really do worry about AMD. Let's take a look on the graph with this IPC, because this is the maximum, this is the total performance, this is the percentage IPC, but let's take a look on the graph with the IPC of the SPEC integer. And actually, yeah, if you put the these numbers, if you put into the graph, you can do it at home, you will receive this, actually this table. And yeah, take a look. X86 is within this range. You can see here the Ice Lake is the best x86 CPU in terms of IPC. Old Cortex A76 here, the actual Cortex A77 is here, and because this is the base of the Snapdragon A65, so actually you can see the IPC, yeah, the smartphones, they have a higher IPC actually than Zen 2 actually today. It's not funny. And the new Cortex X1 is like 30% above it. So yeah, it's starting to be really dangerous, and the V1 is based on this Cortex X1, this boosted Cortex X1. Guys, this is really serious situation. And of course the Apple cores, they are somewhere else. They are even much better, but you can see they are not far away from the new V1 actually. And this is really serious situation. This is yeah, I do really worry about AMD, because AMD Zen 3, if we suggest this is like a 20% above Zen 2, which I do believe, it will be somewhere here. This is the Zen 3, guys. Zen 3 is somewhere here, which is really good in compared to Intel. So because Intel Ice Lake X will be outperformed by the Zen 3, which also will have a higher frequency, but not in the servers. You have to forget about 5 gigahertz in the servers. But in compared to X1 in the cell phones, in the smartphones, and V1 in the servers, Zen 3, even is like a leader of the x86, will be absolutely destroyed by the new ARM cores. This is the evidence why NVIDIA bought ARM, because there is yeah, this is really lifetime opportunity how to buy pretty cheap, 40 billions only, for absolutely the best computer platform right now in the world. So you can see here that, of course, Nuvia saw these numbers when they are buying the ARM. So yeah, this is absolutely insane. But this is only integer, but maybe bigger disaster is coming in the floating point. Because let's take a look and go back to this slide. Yeah, because here you can see the V1 will support SVE, the scalable vector extension, with a dual 256-bit and supporting the bfloat 16, guys. This is really huge leap forward, because already today is running the Fukagu Japanese supercomputer. This is #1, and this ARM CPU is based on 512-bit wide SVE vectors, and actually because of these vectors, it's beating NVIDIA GPU supercomputers. Guys, this is really powerful, and don't forget that the SVE, they do support matrix multiplication, and matrix multiplication, this is a huge enabler of the performance. And x86 has nothing today, actually. AVX512, there is no support for the matrix multiplication right now. Intel actually did unveil the AMX special instructions for matrix multiplication. It should be part of the Sapphire Rapids next year, and but today x86 has nothing, and I am really worried about the AMD, especially because Intel has an AMX for next year, which is not bad. It will be probably in the same time as the V1. So Intel is try to keep up with the ARM, but they are already late, because the Japanese Fujitsu was already using SVE and matrix multiplication. And but AMD didn't announce anything. And the bfloat 16, bfloat 16 is like a doubling the throughput of the machine learning. And if we take a look here, so you can see here, this is the support for this is the subsets of the AVX512, and here this is really big mess. And you can see here that this bfloat 16 is actually here. So only one CPU has a Cooper Lake, has a support for the bfloat 16, and no other CPU, even Ice Lake, nor Tiger Lake, is able to calculate the bfloat 16, which actually brings the double throughput, right? Because instead of float, which is 32-bit, it keeps the same dynamic range with the exponent, but it's the multi-size shorter. But the overall is 16-bit in compared to float, which is 32-bit. So actually, you can do double calculations per cycle, which you are using the bfloat 16, which is a huge. This is like a double speed up in the machine learning for the artificial intelligence. So yeah, it looks like hopefully the Ice Lake will have a support bfloat for next year, but if not, yeah, that's a problem. And the ARM is going to support bfloat 16, yeah, next year for the V1 course, yeah. So missing the matrix multiplication instructions for x86 is a big problem, but let's take a look on the slide with the performance. Because they say actually another insane thing, that actually they say they are going to double IPC in the floating point. And the performance will be like 83% higher. And guys, this is really serious situation. And you have to know that the SVE supports vectors up to 2048 bit wide. Guys, this is like a 4 times wider than the AVX512. This is really serious situation here. You can see the x86 is no more leader in the technology world, in the CPU world. ARM actually is the leader. And that's not the final disaster. I will show the next slide. And you can see another big progress ARM did. You can see here 192 cores. And this is really like 50% increase, because last Neo version 1 supported 128 cores, and you can see this V1 is has a support for 192 cores. And guys, Zen 4 manufactured on 5 nanometers, I do think, will have probably 96 cores per one EPIC chip, and you can see this is really half of this maximum for these ARM server CPUs. And I will show you, this is actually not the biggest disaster. The biggest disaster is on the next slide, and is really related to this 192 cores. Because 192 cores, this is really hard to make a single chip, monolithic. But guys, ARM is going for chiplets, and this is really insane. You can see here on this slide that ARM is going for chiplet, the same like AMD Zen2 architecture. And this is a really serious situation. So they are going to make a chiplet design of the CPU up to 192 cores. And here starts the problem. They have like a 66% higher IPC. They have almost double floating point performance, and they are going to have a CPUs 192 cores, and of course using multiple sockets, using also HBM3 memory, and this is, and don't forget NVIDIA, and also ARM has a NPU accelerators already, so they can already use it for the machine learning. This is really serious situation. I don't know, I really do worry about especially AMD, because AMD is doing great job, and the Zen 3 will be big jump in the x86 world, but in compared to this, ARM is really like a really weak. I would expect from Zen 3 especially higher IPC. Like 15% prediction is really low, and even my prediction like around 20% is really not enough. Okay, let's compare it to Zen 3, because we know that ARM can use a chiplet today, and when we go back on the first slide, we can see here that ARM is going to use DDR5 actually, and HBM memory, guys. This is a really serious situation. Not only higher IPC, not only the SVE vectors with a matrix multiplication and probably higher floating point performance, but next year they are going to have a DDR5 already. And I'm worried about the Zen 3, the Milan, the Zen 3 EPIC. They have a support only for DDR4, and this is really problem. And AMD could be saved if Zen 3 has a support for the HBM memory. This would be really good. But because Japanese, the Fujitsu, the supercomputer is already using HBM2. So yeah, ARM CPUs, they are already using as a memory HBM2. And if we take a look on the Zeus, the first leak of the Zeus chip, which is actually I did a video about it, and we can see here that you can see this is the first. I thought this is the N2, which is not actually, because we know this is the V1, actually the Zeus, but it has a 72 cores in compared to 64 core of the Zen2, so it's a faster, it's a monolithic, and there will be probably more L3 cache, but let's say it's similar. But the problem is that you can see here on this picture, there is a HBM2A memory. So guys, this is a really serious situation, and they are going to use also some DDR5 memories. And Zen2, AMD Zen2 is stuck on a DDR4 memory only. Yeah, for the desktop is fine. I'm actually waiting for the Zen2 for the upgrade, so Zen2 will be great for the desktop, but for the servers, these ARMs are really dangerous machines actually, and I would be really worried about the future of the servers, because and from the servers they can spread into the desktops on the workstations, right? So it's a really serious situation for the x86. It's a breaking point actually, and x86 can die actually, and can die pretty fast.